Bruce Lee is gone, but his supreme style of fighting goes on and on in Goodbye, Bruce Lee, his last game of death. Bruce Lee, he's more than a memory to his millions of brothers of all colors, and now he's back. Hear Kareem Abdul-Jabbar talk about the mysterious death of his close friend and teacher Bruce Lee, and see exciting footage of Jabbar and Lee in actual martial arts competition. Goodbye, Bruce Lee, his last game of death.
Like I mentioned before, in the mid to late 80s, that was like the golden age of the Chinatown Theater. So we have all four theaters. We have the Washing Theater showing mostly Cinema City titles. We have the Great Star Theater showing primarily Golden Harvest titles. And then we have the World Theater and Pagoda Theater kind of showing everything else in between. Sometimes when there's overlapping, because remember this was at a time when there were so many movies being made. Even we have 4 movie theaters here, we couldn't accommodate all of them. So some of these overrun like films would be shown at Pagoda or World.
The theater that I went to the most was the Lux Theater. That was located on Broadway and 12th. And normally what I would do is I'd go into the Lux and lay down my $3.50. And it was 3 movies. Generally I'd only want to see 2 of them. But it was usually 1 or 2 kung fu movies and some American, B feature like Squirm or take your pick, The Incredible Melting Man. And then after the movie, on the way out, you'd go to DeLauer's and go through there, and usually there was something like Tommy Kaye's Big Book of Karate or Karate Illustrated, and there was eventually a magazine called Martial Arts Movies that had a short run for a year or 2. And you'd grab the magazine and kind of continue the process of movie watching via these periodicals. But the Lux Theater was definitely my church.
I still remember, I think one of my most unforgettable experiences was watching Drunken Master 2 right here across the street at the Great Star Theater on Jackson Street, where the shows were sold out. The show that I want to go see was sold out. So I had to hang around and watch the 11:30 midnight show that they added just to accommodate the crowd, because the people just wouldn't leave. They were all standing outside the lobby. They wouldn't want to go. They want to see the movie. They couldn't go in because nobody's leaving the theater, right? And it was just unforgettable to have everybody just cheering at Jackie, watching him doing all this, all his maneuver, the moves, the acrobats. So this is something that you just can't replicate when watching it on the phone or on a laptop, on a desktop. So this is this communal experience that I think the new generation of Hong Kong movie or film lovers are really missing out.
I mean, the films that I would see there, I mean, it's funny to now think about this because so many people are so used to seeing these movies on, YouTube or you may be renting on VHS was the experience that people had for the first time. But for me, it's, going to these theaters to see the clones of Bruce Lee or the real Bruce Lee or Bruce Lee's, Goodbye Bruce Lee, his last game of death. Fists of Bruce Lee. Saw a lot of Bruce movies.
Bruce. Lie. Is back. Yes, Bruce Lee is back in his most exciting roles.
But then, the kung fu films there in general were just always fantastic. The Haku and the Vicious, the Leg Fighters, Seven Commandments of Kung Fu. So the list was endless. But I probably saw close to 75 to 100 movies, either at the Lux, at the Market Street Cinema, at the St. Francis Cinema, Pagoda Palace. And so was in the Pagoda, watching The Dragon the Hero, watching Dragon Lee and John Liu and Philip Ko in its original language with an audience that it was mainly intended for, that I began to see the art of martial arts movies. But there was something as a kid and going in there and reading the subtitles that, it was like for me watching a Kurosawa movie or something, an Ozu film, a Godard movie. It was just a Godfrey Ho movie. But it did change my view of martial arts films.
Now, as the Hong Kong cinema became its slight decline, I guess, in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's when a lot of these movie theaters start dwindling out. We have Wah Sing went first. Wah Sing went in the mid 80s, I believe, 86, 87, so they're gone by then. Followed by Pagoda. Pagoda closed its doors in 1994. So what we have left was Great Star and Whirl. Whirl kind of went on for a few more years until they also closed down in the early 2000s, and then Great Star hang on for a little bit more, and then it was gone too. So now Wah Sing Theater, also on Jackson Street in front of me here, became a Buddhist shop. They're selling Buddha's offering, Buddha's ornaments and stuff for offerings, incenses, or what have you. World Theater is now like a high-class Asian fusion dining place called China Live. Pagoda is gone. Pagoda, they torn down the building in the early 2000s and is now an apartment building. And Great Star is now still here, but the gates, is now all locked up. The facade is still there. You can still see the coming soon. Now showing all those boards are still here. Box office still there, but it's all hiding underneath the steel gate.
I remember I had moved to Los Angeles, and I had come back, and it was just about a week or two before the Lux Theater was closing down. They had stopped showing movies already, but they were about to shut their doors for good. And the last, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, they were leaving the marquee lights up. So there was no movie showing, you couldn't get in, there wasn't anything to do, but at night when you drive by, they were to honor this history. They would leave the lights on for the last couple of weeks. And I remember driving by it at night and just looking at the lights and thinking to myself, there was my dojo, my Kwun, my church, that's where I had experienced so many movies and that had inspired me. Again, I didn't just go to these films and then walk away and then go off and have fun. They were like motivating me to make my own Super 8 movies, to go off and train, to write my own scripts. I mean, I can't even begin to express to a non-cinema fan what it was like to be a part of that time.
For all these people who couldn't experience watching the movie in Chinatown theaters anymore. All right, let's do that again. Yeah. It was a combination of factors. First you have all these Hollywood blockbusters making a lot of, they're really winning the box office in Hong Kong, and then somehow folks in Hong Kong thought, well, I would rather pay money to see these big budget movies than spending my money on watching these Hong Kong movies where, granted, most of them are still kind of low budget, right?
Years later, when the Lux had become a goodwill center, like a Salvation Army type of thing, I went in, and just because I was really curious to just, I was doing something down in Oakland, and I decided to kind of walk over there. And I walked in, and as I came in, and there were the racks of the clothes and shoes and all this secondhand stuff, and then I turned around, I looked up onto the wall at the very top and saw the squares for the projector that was showing that the movies would be shown through. And I thought to myself, how many movies that glass that was up there was reflecting, How many of these incredible Seven Commandments of Kung Fu, or Incredible Melting Man, but it just, the idea of that space having I sat right in these, no chairs there anymore, but I mean, just knowing that I had sat there as a 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old, and it was amazing.
Bruce. Lie. Is. Back.
Everything's got to change. Everything has to evolve, and we have that today. You've got YouTube, and we've got Blu-rays, and we've got DVDs, and 4K, and what we'll have in the next 10 years with with digital stuff, and we can only tell. But I'm really glad we had the movie days. For me, specifically for me, I think I learned a certain respect for the theater's experience, and it was important. It was great. Thank God it happened.